How's it going, guys? Welcome back. I'm here again at NT Performance Engines with my friend Matt Trevina, and today we'll be taking a closer look at my new ATI Super Damper. So Matt's got the ATI blown apart. He's got his machine piece that he uses to put the ATI damper onto the foray, and he's also got an assortment of different bolts here that'll he actually uses different length bolts to draw the damper onto the shaft. So I won't try to explain it all because I'm just going to butcher it. I'll let him take it on. So yeah, give us a bit of a rundown on exactly what we're doing here and how it all works, man.
Alrighty, so here we've got the original OEM damper compared to my damper hub, you would call it, made for the outer ring. So this is scratch built, made from chromoly. Yeah, essentially single row. We removed the air conditioning part, which we can make as an option. We can add trigger wheels, mandrel drives for dry sump. That's all available off this hub, and it's been coated. So yeah, here's the man of the hour, the harmonic damper ring. So you know, people when they look at this don't see a lot. I see a fair bit. So if you have the tooling to separate this, which you'll find inside here is multiple rubber rings. Now they're specifically tuned, so they're a certain density, and like you say, that density, they have different levels of density within those rubber linings, and that offsets the twisting actions of the crankshaft and the harmonic frequencies that the engine produces. Like I said before, the factory OEM balancer doesn't have that option. The factory rubber ring in here separates after probably the first 20 years, and then for the next 10 years it runs on borrowed time. And yeah, we've made some modifications, some upgrades, if you will, to the damper. So the position here and here, we've actually made it wider, supporting more area over the crankshaft. As you can see, the difference is quite substantial in the thickness along here. Now that sits against the gear on the front of the engine, which I can show you here on this dummy engine I have on a test stand. You can actually see the old wear mark here. The new mark comes out to these flat sections, these holes here, which then is replicated by the support of this gear. So we're trying to give as much support as possible, and if you know engines quite well, you know that the keyway doesn't actually hold the balancer from spinning. That's there to align everything up from day one. It's actually the clamping force of the bolt drawing the balancer on. So if you actually lose tension of that bolt, your keyway will flog because it starts to move. And we'll also find is the sizing for a Toyota hole to the snout is basically size for size, which fits. But when you start moving to a more heavier ATI damper hub, we'll actually hone finish this. So we actually give this an interference fit of generally 1.5 thou to 1 thou. This makes it tight when it goes on. Most times if you're dealing with Chevys or Fords or anything supercharged blown, you'll actually have to find that you have to put this in an oven, heat it up, and actually draw it on hot, because of the interference that they give. Again, it's the interference and the clamping load of the bolt that holds these on, not the keyway. The keyway is just there to align everything up from installation.
Yeah, and that's where these bolts come into
play. So I have multiple different length bolts because I've also made the hub thicker. So I'm getting more support over the length of the snout by making it deeper.
Yep.
So now I use a longer bolt. I'll use quite a long bolt at the start to get it started. As you can see, there is a back cut here behind the hone finish, a slight back cut that helps me get it started, get the keyway lined up. After that, I'll pull it on, remove that bolt as it bottoms out and move in the shorter bolt until it's all the way home. Then we tension up the final size bolt.
Another good thing to mention is, as far as clamping force and that goes, is this washer, the hardened washer.
Yeah. So with that, I also supply a chromoly hardened washer. This is to suit this balancer only. So you'll only find this washer to suit the balancer. It is a neat fit on the bolt, so there's no real give on that. It also is just shy of the size inside the hole, so she doesn't move around a lot. So it's quite a neat little piece once it's all finished up. Now there's a couple of different 4A bolts you can actually get for the balancer. This one here is a captive washered bolt. The hole in the crankshaft is actually quite substantially deeper than the factory bolt, so I actually try and utilize as much depth as possible to get as much thread purchase on. Anyone who knows engineering says that the maximum amount of bolt strength is 1.5 times the diameter of the bolt. So if you bolt 10 mil, you need to have about 15 mil of thread purchase to get the full strength from the bolt. So I'm going to go further than that. So yeah, that's the next step. Some of the other modifications we'll have to make are the front cover. Here you can see I've ground out a front cover to suit the larger diameter hub insert, I guess you call it. It's pretty easy because on the inside of these they have a guide. So you cut out the center section here out to that outer ring. Makes it nice and easy. It also makes it quite easy again for an aftermarket removal tool. This one here is from Snap-on, to remove the hub, because we have so many bolt positions on the external part of the hub. We have the option of the hardened washer to go in, and the actual to put the bolt to put inside the draw screw. So the drawing screw can go inside this. Being hardened won't damage it once we're trying to draw off this thing, and that is a necessity for getting one of these off. You won't get this off with a pair of screwdrivers, I can tell you that. Like this flies off.
Yeah.
But this one you definitely will not get off with a pair of screwdrivers. You'll be replacing your oil pump after it's all cracked and damaged. This is the first time this has been fitted.
So that's the longest bolt just to get it started? That's not the actual bolt.
Yeah, once she's home,
yep,
I'll pull this off.
And then go shorter.
Yeah. It's gonna get real tight real soon. Threads.
So how long has this balancer been in the making? How long has it been in your mind before you actually took it on?
Long time, man. I've wanted this balancer since I started playing with 4Os 10 years ago.
I think I remember you were hitting up ATI and they were saying there wasn't enough demand.
I did. I messaged ATI a long time ago and I said, hey, I'm looking for a harmonic damper to suit a Toyota 4A, and they just said, mate, there's just not enough for demand for it. It's something we might consider in the future if the demand gets higher, but they're just not interested. Okay.
So do you have a torque spec for the new bolt?
Yeah.
If you were to install it for the final time in a car, what would you torque it down to?
Generally with torque specs, you can find the torque spec via the diameter. Anything sort of hardened to a high grade, anything around the half-inch mark, you talk 100 foot-pounds. So if you work off that size, we're just shy of half-inch. So this is 465 there. So I'd probably put this at about 95 foot-pounds, probably in the vicinity of 90 foot-pounds of torque. But depending, again, there's a lot that goes into it. It's almost bolt dependent. Some bolts can cope with a lot more torque. This is a hardened, quite a hard material and hardened piece with a hardened washer and quite a high grade tensile bars, an 8.8 tensile strength. So if it can cop with 100 pounds, 110 pounds, you'd probably go there. Loctite on the thread, and anti-seize under the head. I'd probably try and pull down to about 110 pounds. I don't know what that was there. That was just FT. But with the correct tension setting, I'd probably go to about 110 pounds. If it felt like I could do more, I might back it off and come back up to maybe say 120 pounds. Again, like you say, the fit on this is quite tight, so you're going to get a lot of resistance of force from the actual tension of the damper onto the snout. So sometimes that will give a false reading on you, the tension wrench. So you might think you're at 90 pounds, but you might have 150 pounds fighting against you of pull force rather than just the actual head force pulling down.
I see. So, and you said you'd use anti-seize under the head. Would you not use ARP grease?
Well, yeah, like you say, the ARP grease is a high graphite content anti-seize grease. This is a Loctite brand, heavy duty anti-seize. If I have this or if I use the ARP, it's all pretty much similar stuff. ARP like you to use their grease on their products because they're tested with their products.
Okay.
So when ARP says 80 pounds with ARP grease, if I was to use the Loctite anti-seize, it might be a different grade. Obviously it's a different grade of anti-seize, so it might take 90 pounds, or it could be better and it might only take 70 pounds to achieve the same tension strength on that bolt.
Yep.
The only real way to gauge the two greases is to use, say, a rod bolt stretch gauge and test it on some rods. Stretch some rod bolts onto a rod, measure the stretch with to tension it with a tension rod to the same degree, and then measure the stretch of the bolt. And if it falls within those two ranges, you could then assume, well, you wouldn't even be assuming at this point, you'd be claiming then that the Loctite grease could be as good as, or not, if not better than the ARP grease. But that's just testing. You'd have to come down to yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if you're wondering what rod bolt stretch is, check out one of my other previous videos when we were assembling the bottom end of my block, and Matt goes right through the whole process of tensioning down rod bolts and using the stretch gauge to see how well the clearances are lining up in conjunction to the torque and the stretch of the bolt. So go check it out if you're interested.
So on these, they're marked. Here you have an offset hole here on the damper. That offset hole is marked here just with a pin punch or a drill. So let's move this around to here. I'll bolt this on and we'll double check, make sure everything lines up.
How good does it look, eh?
Looks tidy.
It actually, on video and in photos, it actually looks a lot bigger than it does in real life.
Yeah.
Sort of wanted to mention that. When you actually see it on the car, it doesn't look as out of proportion as what it would like in this video here. So
yeah, surprisingly, once I fitted it to my engine, I thought, damn, she's big. But then once it actually went onto the engine, I was like, that actually looks really nice. Like the sizing's really good.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. You've got to do your research. If you don't trust me, look online. There's a lot of guys who have done, detailed instructional videos on how these exactly work. There's a couple of guys out there, big name guys, who have done this exact same thing. They swear by ATI. I mean, I've seen guys run fluid dampers on Hondas and things. That was another option that I was going to consider. But ATI make the outer rings very, very easily to obtain. Serviceable parts are available for them. The ATI balancers are completely serviceable. You can strip that damper and you can rebuild it. And there is strict times, it actually says it on the front, when to rebuild it. How many years of certain track time and things like so on. It's all available. Once you've got it, it's there for life, and it's serviceable. You have the option to. Unlike other brands, you purchase it, it starts to get worn out, throw it in the bin, buy another one. This is fully serviceable, hence the cost. It is that. It's so nice when you've got all the right tools to the job, hey?
We'd never get it off otherwise.
Yeah, mate, there we have our ATI.
Well, that'll be it for this video, guys. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you'd like to see part 7, where we start this new motor for the first time and take the car out for its first rip, hit that notification bell. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.